Calling all technology coaches. Join Fort Edge this summer for a 2-day coaches camp packed with high-quality professional development exclusively for you. Attendees will work with like-minded coaches on creating strategies for teacher relationships, executing coaching cycles, and building a culture of coaching and tech integration within their school or district. There are 2 opportunities to attend Coaches Camp this summer. Join us either June 25 and 26 in New Orleans prior to ISTE 2022 or in Cincinnati on July 28 and 29. Please visit fort-edge.net/coachcamp to reserve your spot today.
Aloha, everyone. I'm Katie Ritter.
And I'm Justin Thomas, and this is the Restart Recharge podcast, a podcast by coaches for coaches. We'll bring you the tips and tricks in your everyday life and work to help you as an instructional technology coach or, whatever they call you in your school district.
So hopefully you're going to leave this episode with us today, just feeling a little bit less on your own coaching island.
And as you heard at the very beginning of this episode, we do have Coaches Camp coming up. You can use the RR podcast code, and that is going to get you $50 off of your registration. So once again, Coaches Camp, an amazing opportunity to learn how you can create a culture of technology integration within your school district and also meet other like-minded individuals and create that personal learning network. Now, today we're continuing on with our mini-series on the admin and coach relationship, and we are coming to you this week to talk about how one Southwest Ohio school district is making major waves in creating systematic change because of an awesome administrator and coach partnership. So join us in learning how they've streamlined their success and are transforming their district and how you can emulate their achievements. So for today, we're going to be taking a look at this school district. Let's first introduce the coach in this relationship, and that is Andrea Carvellano. She has been in education for 12 years, 10 of which were spent in the classroom. She's taught 1st and 3rd grade with math and science, and also 7th and 8th grade technology. She also taught courses like Google Basics and Fundamental Game Design courses. She became an instructional technology coach in 2020, working with grades K through 12 and supporting teachers in designing impactful learning experiences. So please welcome in Andrea.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, we are glad to have you here, Andrea. And I have the pleasure of introducing our second guest, the principal in this coach-principal partnership joining us today, and that is Mr. Logan Stenger. This is his 6th year in education and his 2nd year as a principal of Monroe Junior High School. He previously served as an intervention specialist at Monroe High School for 4 years prior to transitioning to administration. He received his bachelor's from Ball State University in special education, and he also has a master's in educational leadership from American College of Education. As principal, he currently works with a staff of about 35 to 40 members, and then also serves a student population that ranges between about 450 to 475 students every year in the building. So Logan, welcome. We are so glad to have your perspective on this 3-part mini-series about how coaches can work with principals and other admin to really have a really strong partnership to move change in instruction forward. So thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. So, okay, we're going to kick it off. So if you guys could first give, beyond what your roles are in Monroe local schools here in Ohio, we'd love to give our listeners maybe a little bit of background. So maybe about 3 years ago, tell us, where were you from, technology use in the classroom? What did that look like across the district? And then we'd like to hear, where are you now? And then I might ask a little follow-up question on kind of how you got there. But let's start. Where were you? Where are you now?
Okay. Well, we are kind of a relatively small to medium-sized district. We've grown, though, a ton in the last few years. I mean, what was it? I think you said 2007.
Yeah, 2007. We had like K-12. We had about 1,100 students, and now we have like 2,900. So about 15 years, it's been a huge increase in student population for us. So absolutely.
Yeah. And because of that, I think we've seen a lot of change just due to the number of students that we now have joining our district, the number of additional staff that requires. And so because we have all of these new people coming in, whether they're students or staff, we are trying to figure out the best way to keep that culture moving forward. So 3 years ago, I'd say we were kind of very traditional. We, in every classroom we had students, they would use Chromebooks occasionally, to work on assignments and things like that. But there wasn't really a culture to push towards more than just using the technology for some of that substitution type application or substitution styles of learning. And so in the past 3 years, we've gone one-to-one with our district. We've also started like a SAMR initiative to try and help push some of those more hands-on, some of those higher level of thinking with technology and things like that. And it's been a long process, but I think it's one that we're really proud of, and we just try and keep going forward every day.
Absolutely. And just to add on to that, converting to one-to-one this school year, I can just say from an administration standpoint, it has been fantastic. Just because, we always preach accountability for our students. Students are responsible for their devices. It's definitely streamlined that process for our educators just to get content to our kids in just great and creative ways. Andrea is phenomenal. I'll say that a few times throughout this recording, no doubt about it, but she's great to work with. She does a great job supporting our teachers and just gives them a variety of resources and options to deliver content to our kids and just all kinds of learning modalities that are interesting to them. So
awesome.
It's been a really great transition for us with the one-to-one this school year, and it looks completely different than how it did 3 years ago in our district.
Yeah. So 3 years ago, the only building that we had, or the only grade levels that we had that were actually one-to-one, were our 7th and 8th grade building, our junior high. And so we kind of piloted almost one-to-one in those grade levels, and then made small changes to see, okay, how is this going to work best in elementary? What grade levels do we need to incorporate or include in the take-home version of one-to-one, rather than just making sure we have a device for each kid in the classroom. So we went from just kind of piloting in 7th and 8th grade to actually now having where, let me clarify that too. We didn't have the students take anything home during that first pilot. It was just, we had carts. We made sure that there was at least one device for every student in those grade levels. And then we transitioned to, after a lot of research, a lot of talking with teachers, to deciding that our one-to-one, we would go 5 through 12, our students would be able to be in charge and accountable of those devices to take them home. And then in our K-4 classrooms, we would just continue that cart version of one-to-one, where each child has a device. Because even up till last year, our primary grades were not one-to-one at all. They had maybe one device for every 2 to 3 kids.
Okay.
So being able to increase the number of devices and the amount of access we have was huge. And I think that was kind of the catalyst for a lot of our teachers to start tweaking things, because they're like, well, now we have this technology, let's, move forward. And we figured it was the perfect time. Over the summer, we attended our administration, myself and our other instructional coach attended the Forward Edge Admin Boot Camp. And we talked about SAMR at the boot camp, and we talked about all these other ways that the coaches can work along with admin. It was a fantastic experience. And across the board, all of our admins said that they wanted to focus on SAMR as kind of the way to move forward. We're going one-to-one. Let's make sure that our staff and our students know how to use that technology in the most effective ways. That's not just using the Chromebook because they have it, but using in a way that's going to support that pedagogy, the instructional strategies and the practices and whatever it is that our students are supposed to be doing, using technology to support that.
Awesome. I'm curious, how much did COVID play into admin decision to actually move forward with one-to-one? Was that already in the works? Because you mentioned the pilot 3 years ago, so that was definitely prior.
I can speak on that.
Yeah.
We knew there was a need. I think COVID certainly accelerated that for our district, just because of just the status of everybody either being in the building or not being able to come in the building for various reasons for that. But it really just kind of lit a fire under us to really get that process and get the ball rolling with that, with the one-to-one transition. And I'll also just add on to Andrea's, in terms of our administration, focus on SAMR and what that means for us. If, the kids might all have their Chromebooks, but if our staff aren't aware of what to do with the SAMR and the different levels of that, it really doesn't change anything. So, we really wanted to instruct and make sure that our staff was aware of what, coaching options are out there and how to really play through the all 4 levels of SAMR.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, it sounds like you guys didn't, by no means did you just say, hey, we're putting devices in all the kids' hands and jumped in. It sounds like you were very thoughtful and intentional over the past 3 years of, hey, we're going to first pilot this, right? Like, let's see how it works. Let's adapt it based on our grade levels, and then let's continue to add. And then you've put in a lot of work too from, Andrea, your work with the teacher perspective. Logan, it sounds like you guys as an admin team put in a lot of work behind the scenes. So it sounds like you've laid like a lot of good foundations to get you from point A to point, H, somewhere in the middle. You're further than point B, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
I don't know that we ever get to Z, right? But it's always
elusive.
a journey.
Yes, always a journey. You've both already kind of talked a little bit about your roles that you've played in these big changes, but how about your partnership together and how that has contributed towards this student and teacher growth or success with these models?
Okay. I think for me specifically in my role as an instructional coach, I work not only with like admin and teachers, but I have also been working with our IT department as well, just to come up with, okay, what technologies are necessary for these things to see our students grow and what's the best types of things that we can provide for them. But I think for the most part, our partnership has really just made us reconsider and kind of rethink how instruction needs to look in the classroom. So that's kind of where we've been having open conversations with each other. At the beginning of this school year, this year, I met with every building administrator. And I just talked to them like, what are your goals for your building this year? And Logan gave me like a page and a half of initiatives.
I'm very thorough. So yeah.
Yep. We went through, and that, first year principal too, right?
Right.
Second year principal. So he still has the big long list. No.
I do. I'm a thorough person.
Good
very much so.
Stay strong, Logan.
We talked about, all those different initiatives, and we kind of narrowed it down and said, okay, well, how can I, in my role, support you, and which initiatives do you want me to help tackle alongside you, as the year progresses? And I think it helped us really understand what that plan needed to look like. And again, the main plan that we had across the district, even though these were individual building conversations I was having across the district, we wanted to go with SAMR. So then I kind of took it back a little bit and I worked into, okay, what's our big focus for this year? What do we want to get done? What does SAMR look like 1 year from now, 2 years from now? And I kind of just laid out a bare bones plan that I gave to each of our administrators. And then we kind of worked with it to make SAMR fit into how their building works, how their grade level and department meetings work, and how we would be able to fit SAMR into basically just anything and anywhere that we could actually get it. So I think that was a big part of it, that we would just check in with each other regularly and be able to include those discussions and on SAMR so that teachers are able to transfer that learning to the students and have those student outcomes that they're looking for.
I love it. Will you guys give an example? Like, what was one initiative, Logan, that you had? So you had the district initiative of SAMR, right? So you decided as an admin team, hey, we find this really valuable and important, so we're going to kick it off with this. Then Logan, then we start like dwindling down, and it's like, okay, now every building principal, they're still going to have their own initiatives and goals based on what their students and staff need. So like, what was one example of that initiative then that you and Andrea looked at together?
Right. So as we talked about earlier, my thoroughness in terms of what we wanted to do was definitely evident there. But in terms of what we wanted to do, just from the building perspective, Andrea, when she was in the junior high, she led our building tech committee. And we just really expanded on the roles and responsibilities of our staff. And that just in terms of talking about SAMR, we do our, just in our monthly meetings as a staff, We do like a tech spotlight to where a member of our building tech committee highlights like whether it's a protocol or a certain resource or a version of SAMR in terms of our instruction. And they kind of, just highlight that for the staff. They give our entire building staff time to interact with it. And Andrea and I have just really kind of worked to make sure that those resources are available and those presentations are laid out together. And just really even just figuring out what we want to do for professional development with how we roll that time out for our staff when we do get that critical time to work together. So it's a very fluent communication process between us, just checking in and out pretty often throughout the week, just to see how things are going, checking in on just all the various responsibilities of how our building tech committee is doing within the junior high building. So she plays a critical role in that.
Yeah, I want to chime in on that too, because Logan's always has done an incredible job with modeling, the different things that we're hoping our teachers are doing in their classrooms as well. So he even joins like our lunch and learn PDs and things like that, and then takes what we're talking about and he uses it in his staff meetings, whether it's, using something like Pear Deck to get everybody engaged and collect data on, just simple things like surveying the staff on their needs and things like that. He's using those kind of tools to support and collect that information. So I think he's not only modeling it in a great way, which is definitely going to help keep our building moving forward, because they're seeing it not only just from me, but also from admin, from all different directions. But he's doing it consistently too. So we're seeing it, like he mentioned, his screencastifying, his building announcements, every morning. So our students are seeing it. We're seeing ways that we're able to get this information to not only, the admins between themselves, but also to the wider scope of our district in general.
And I'll add on to that with, she mentioned my use of Pear Deck in our staff meetings.
Yeah.
We have, as we know, schools have tons of committees. There are often questions that I pose through Pear Deck to our staff. And your usual staff meeting just says, raise your hand or who thinks this and that. And you don't really have a way to walk away with those responses that you fielded. With the Pear Deck resource that Andrea certainly coached me to incorporate into our staff meetings, that has allowed me to export that data, bring it to the other committees and say, like maybe our PBIS initiative, how's our system working currently? What adjustments can we make? Through that Pear Deck, I'm getting responses from all staff. It's not just one or two that's raising their hands and sharing out. Everybody's participating. I take that data and then I bring it to the committee and say, here's where our staff feels like we're functioning as a building. And it allows us to have really good conversations within those subcommittees within our building. So the technology and Andrea's prompting and coaching has really not only elevated our students and staff, but just me personally in terms of being able to support those other committees in the role that I'm in.
Yeah, that's awesome. Kudos to you. And I feel like a lot of coaches listening are currently jealous of having a building admin that works so well and is modeling it. So awesome job to you, Logan. Andrea, will you, and I'm sorry if you said this at the beginning, but I forget what you said if you did. When did you have these initial meetings with all of the building admin? Was that a summer thing? Was that an end of previous school year thing?
It kind of both, actually.
Sure.
So, towards the end of last year, that was my first official year in the instructional coach. Prior to that, I was kind of just informally, I was still teaching and I was kind of doing, I had a duty period for coaching responsibilities. But at the end of last year, I kind of started some of those conversations because I wanted to know, hey, what is it that you need me to be working on over the summer so that I can be ready when you guys are, when we come back here in August? Because I'm still on a teacher contract. And so I don't have those summer hours to be, that I'm going to be in the building and things like that. So I did kind of start a little bit of front loading, I guess, my summer ideas and things like that by having those conversations with them at the end of the previous year. But I would say they had me come back a week early in regards to the regular teacher calendar. And that's kind of where we had all of these main conversations because they had been, they've been doing work all summer. What's changed, since we last talked, obviously, since we all went to the admin camp. I went to the coaches camp over the summer as well, learned all kinds of great things there. So, and by kind of I guess just looking at the big picture and now seeing, okay, where are all these pieces moving now that, we're 2 months ahead. What can we do? What can I do to help? How can I support? Which initiatives are most important to you and things like that.
Right. And I'll also chime in too. I didn't mention this earlier, but part of those pre-school year meetings were, and we've already talked about my thoroughness in terms of my role, but we already have our data department meetings, staff meetings. We already have those dates set for the entire school year, set in August. And then that allows Andrea and I to synchronize our schedules to make sure that she is able to attend those department meetings. And she's able to add resources. Hey, like, here's my thoughts on this, and allows the teachers within their department to share, hey, we're struggling with this. Do you have any ideas? Are there any resources or options that you have? So we have allocated time within each of those department meetings for Andrea to attend. And we try and set those on the same day. So Andrea's not going to our building like 8 different times a month, but she's able to cycle within, those 10, 15 minutes to each department to visit and check in. And so that way they can get their questions answered and supported. So
I love
that's been great.
so much. 2 things that you guys have kind of alluded to in that thread there. One, you both made mention of like the ongoing communication. So it's not like set our goals, like move forward, we'll reconvene in next May. But I love the ongoing communication that you hit on. And I love so much, Logan, that you are including Andrea in other meetings that aren't even necessarily specifically tech focused, right? Like that's the point, that's the goal of what we're trying to do, is just embed these things, into our instructions seamlessly. And if we only say lead a tech PD on our PD days, or only point people like, oh, go see Andrea to teach you how to use that this one time, like that isn't going to cut it. But you guys are really getting at the heart in the fundamentals of like, how do we really transform this from the ground up in everything we do? And that's by including Andrea and things that aren't like forward necessarily on the outward, like tech focused. And so I love that too.
Right.
And I think the vocab word is just consistency. That is just a part of our monthly and just expectations for staff that we're going to engage in those conversations and just try to always improve each day.
Yeah, that's something we've done across the building too, not just specifically with our junior high, but with our elementary, our primary, our high school. I have on my calendar, all of their department meetings and grade level meetings, and I attend, when I can. Obviously, I can't make it to everything, but we try and have, just those very organic conversations like, hey, what kind of information, what kind of units are coming up? Let's talk about ways that we can, support our students. And is there anything that you need accessibility wise? Or, we have a large number of EL students this year. So we talked about different ways that we can support those students in the classroom and different options we have for communication and things like that. So it was really nice to be in on those conversations. Even though it's not a tech PD, I can still provide support for those teachers for their everyday, which is, I think, essential. So they see me not only as like a coach, which many times people can see as what's what I'm looking for, like
I'm struggling to
I know, right?
Out,
as can be seen as like I'm evaluative, or I'm like a negative thing in terms of people need to come see me if they're doing something wrong, which is not the case. It's more of like the idea bouncing, the idea that 2 brains are better than 1, and we can just talk and share ideas that are really more about making sure that our students are supported and we're getting the outcomes from them that we're hoping for.
Yeah, so. And that is a great point. It is a district initiative, and Andrea is spread out amongst 4 buildings in our district. And as we talked about the student population earlier, it is a large number of meetings and different things like that to make sure it's getting addressed. And there will always only be one Andrea because she's fantastic. But certainly it's something that we as a district look into for additional, coaches and additional support so that we can provide that more frequently and just engage in that conversation consistently.
Sure.
I mean, 2 big things that came out of that was consistency and communication, I feel like. But that whole conversation was amazing with just different ideas that you guys have had to really help with this partnership that you guys have grown here. Is there any advice that you would give to other coaches and principals in creating and achieving something of this shared goals? I mean, you guys had a lot of great aspects in there. Just anything else that you want to talk about on that?
I think the biggest thing that, and this could be an entirely different episode, but we've really worked hard over here to build like a network of like ed tech and like people that are in on the conversations and helping move everything forward. Because like Logan said, I am only one person. And that was my biggest thing when I went to the Forward Edge Coaches Camp over summer. My main question when I walked in for that day was, how do I duplicate myself? Like it's not possible for me to help 275 teachers, sufficiently every year and things like that. So I wanted to make sure, okay, how can we like cast a wider net, which made us, work with and kind of reimagine our building tech committees, and kind of make them an extension of what I call the instructional technology department, which of course right now is just me, but
I like that.
They are an extension
it's like
of
build
that
it and they will come.
Exactly. And I think we've done a really great job at kind of just, starting off small, involving a few more people, getting that ball rolling. And it's really grown into something that's pretty impressive in terms of where we were even just last year. Our building tech committees, even last year, aside from the junior high, they're my special group over here. Aside from the junior high, our building tech committees were really only on conversations on like infrastructure type conversations. Sure. How many devices are we getting? That type of thing. And we've turned it and we've really changed it into having them be a part of, hey, what do our grade levels need, and things like that. So I think that building relationships and providing a network of support for our staff has really helped. I think that's probably the number one tip that I would suggest, is try to create and cast a wider net, especially if you only have a few people who are in the roles that I am in. And I think another part of it then is once you kind of have that net, cast it a little further, the idea of maybe making kind of scripting your moves, like what's most critical, in terms of what do we need to get done. So from the top down, from our district technology committee, what are some of those big ideas here? How can we feed that into our building tech committees? How does that get then fed out into, just our staff across the board? And so we're kind of making those scripted critical moves, and moving slowly through them, which I think is big too. And then I think the final thing, which I'm really pleased with this year as well, we are really focusing on the bright spots and trying to ensure that we are encouraging change by celebrating the change that we see happening. So throughout the district, we have things like the technology spotlights, like Logan mentioned in his staff meetings. We did something over winter break that we've actually, not winter break, sorry, prior to winter break, that we extended through the rest of our year so far, where we have teachers just kind of doing a little shout out and showcase of things they're doing in their classrooms. We have a Padlet wall where everybody shares across the district. Awesome. And so we have big bright spots like that. And then we also have little things. Our coaches and even some of our teachers have taken to giving postcards out to people that they just like appreciate and say, hey, I love what you did here. This was a great use of whatever, or a thanks for letting me be in your classroom, letting me observe and see how things go. I've even seen teachers giving them to students, said, hey, you worked really great on, this test, and you went through and you checked every single one of your answers before you submitted. And I want to, say thank you for it. So we're really trying to really celebrate those bright spots. And I think that's what helps us create that sustainable change, because we're not only just, giving it to them one time and saying, okay, we'll see you next May. Yeah. Here's an idea. Let's see how far you can take it. We're trying to keep it going by bringing it up in staff meetings, by giving those little Post-its out, by having people chime in on the Padlet and showcase what's happening in their classrooms, whether it's technology related or not. It's just, let's share and let's celebrate and let's support each other.
Yeah. Quick follow-up question for you, Andrea, before Logan, we see what advice you have for other coaches or principals, particularly for creating these shared goals. But Andrea, when I'm thinking in terms of like your time management and how many, like you're coaching that many teachers across multiple buildings, you're attending all of these meetings, which is awesome because you're able to get this different perspective. Do you attribute being able to manage that to some of these like tech committees and how you phrased it, like casting a wider net or like duplicating juggling yourself? Or do you have another like specific tip you might give to coaches around like how you're managing and juggling all of those things?
Yeah, well, that actually is something that has changed for me from last year to this year. So last year with my coaching cycles, I overdid it. I had 16 people per semester that I was working with cycles. And then, yeah, it was a lot. And I thought it was fantastic because I was like, all these people want to work. They want to talk. They want to come up with, new ideas. And I really felt kind of like that I wasn't doing the job that I needed to do. I didn't feel like sometimes that I was necessarily coaching. It was more of like a question and answers type session or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so I've mentioned a couple times, but after that coaches camp that I went to, I learned such a better strategy for being able to manage my time. So I'm working with fewer people, but we're able to dive so much deeper because of it. And I learned kind of a structure, which is kind of like a meet and then like an informal observation. And then we meet again and we talk. And it's just a very fluid way of working with those people who, want to participate in the coaching cycles. Mm-hmm. And I think because of me kind of stepping back and say, let's work with a smaller number of people, it opened me up to be able to do all of those other things that are kind of a part of the job of a coach as well, creating professional developments for people, working with our building tech committees and going to all of these different meetings where I can kind of embed myself in that conversation and keep everything relevant. So I think kind of slowing that down, like I said, with the number of people I was working with, that really allowed me to open up myself for the other things that were necessary to keep all of these initiatives going and to provide the support that those initiatives needed to really get off the ground and continue moving forward.
Yeah. Logan, do you have anything that you would add to any of that?
Just from an administration role, just be open. There's, the world of education is constantly evolving. And I think just we as building principals and just district administrators, whoever's in an administrative type role, just be open. I know it's easy to really get set in that level of comfort, but just expose yourself to just new and interesting resources because the chances are they're really going to take your building further than where you're currently at. And if it's not, and it doesn't work out, that's okay. Retool it, work together, and then see what other options you might have. I also told the building tech committee, it's a very tight knit group. I'd give them a shout out. Okay. So is that okay?
Yeah.
So here it is.
All right. I give them a shout out. Okay. So they volunteer their time. They do a fantastic job. Our building tech committee chairperson is Hannah Marshall. She's a Spanish teacher in our junior high, does a great job. And then other committee members are Alex Grunkemeyer, Corey Manning, and Jordan Lamping. And they do a great job. We meet monthly and just discuss how we're going to continue to take our building further. And obviously Andrea is at every one of those meetings as well as part of our BTC. Really, we've talked about this earlier, is just being consistent, consistent with your modeling. And just like I said, failure is going to happen. That's the only way we're going to move forward. And, just embrace that, embrace the change, appreciate failure, appreciate the attempt, and just kind of problem solve together. Mm-hmm. That's just really the biggest thing that I would recommend is just being open as the building principal, just, because change for the good is what we're seeing here.
Yeah, I think Logan and I were lucky too, because we actually both switched roles into these new jobs for us at the same year. So, and we were also lucky because when he was still teaching, he would come into my room and ask me printer questions all the time. So
that is true. That is true. I've come a long way.
Foreshadowing.
So
come a long way
because we already had that background, that relationship that was already like we're teachers together, and now we're kind of we're switching roles and things. So that made it really easy for us to just kind of continue on and have those conversations about what we want to see for the building. But in cases where, like, if I were going brand like fresh into a district that I didn't know anybody, I think I would just try and for all those coaches out there that are still kind of struggling, maybe my suggestion, and I kind of had it easy, at least for the start of this, but I would think that just being visible and kind of not necessarily being pushy, obviously, but just kind of inserting yourself into those conversations and say, I might be, my title might be technology coach, but really I'm here for instructional design. I am here for content, for curriculum. It's not, when I walk around the building, I don't want to see a Chromebook in the face of every kid every second of the day. I want to see creation. I want to see all these types of things happening where the technology is just supporting it. So I think if they go in and they talk with these administrators and show that what the title is not necessarily the only thing that we're capable of doing, and just kind of making yourself known and putting yourself out there, I think that would help build some of those relationships as well, just to get started. So then you can have those conversations so that they know that you're there to support them as administrators as well as their staff.
We've been having a really amazing conversation here. We're going to take a pause for just a moment to hear from our sponsors before we come back and talk more about this coach and admin relationship. Looking for a program that reaches all teachers and learning new tools to integrate in their lessons? Edu Badges is the answer. Edu is an anytime, anywhere badging program that is designed to take bite-sized tools for instruction and teach teachers how to use them. Edu has received the ISTE Seal of Alignment for educator standards, and each badge in our expanding library is aligned to the ISTE standards and the SAMR model. Learn more about the program that teachers call addicting at forward-edge.net/edubadges. Instructional coaches support teachers, students, administrators, and really everyone in the district. In fact, research shows that instructional coaching is one of the most impactful forms of professional development that results in improved teacher instruction and student achievement. But who is supporting the coach? Forward Edge provides multiple year-long mentorship options recommended by the Google for Education Certified Coach Program to help you gain the valued support you need as an instructional coach. Visit forward-edge.net to start giving PD to the ultimate PD providers. Welcome back to the Restart Recharge podcast. We are here with Andrea Carvellano and Logan Stanger, and they are both from Monroe local school districts, and they're talking about the coach and admin relationship. Justin Thomas and Katie Ritter, of course, here on the Restart Recharge podcast. But continuing on, I think, Katie, you had a really good question to start on our second half of this podcast.
Yeah, well, Andrea, I think that you've touched a lot on really how the coaching has supported the adoption of a lot of these initiatives moving forward. Of course, if there's anything that you want to maybe add to that, with the particular lens, specifically, how has your coaching moved it forward? By all means, add. But I'm also curious for Logan, and honestly for both of you, thinking, I know that our team of coaches they hear time and time again from teachers that this is the worst year of teaching for them ever. And that they're just so drained, and they don't want anything new. They don't have the time. They don't want a screen in their face for, yet another virtual PD again. So I'm just so curious, how have the two of you really worked to keep the staff positive? And Andrea, you mentioned so many things of celebrating the bright spots that you guys have been doing, and I imagine that's contributed to some of the positivity around the building. But I'm just so curious, what have the two of you done, whether it's in your individual roles or working together, thinking about how are we continuing to move the staff forward even when they're facing these challenges of being burned out and drained right now?
Yeah. Well, I will say this, I feel like a lot of the coaching side of things is really driven by our staff in the first place. And again, I think I'm lucky in that I was already a part of our junior high building and already a part kind of informally of the other buildings, in my first 5 years of working here. And so they already knew who I was, and we already had, relationships built and things like that. But I think a lot of times our staff, even though, we see that same exhaustion that I think every district is seeing right now, even though we still see that with our staff, our staff still know that they're supported not only by, myself, but also our admin. And I think in terms of just, well, we'll put it this way. So this year we decided to work with SAMR, right? We kind of mentioned that. when it comes to introducing that to our staff, we wanted to make sure that they knew and they understood that this is not something that is brand new.
Yeah.
These are things that you're already doing in the classroom. So the Padlet that we had created and started over, prior to winter break, I used in one of our CMR trainings, I pulled examples that were right around from every, almost every building, every year, or almost every grade level, every building, of different ways that teachers are using technology, where they fall. And we were having these great conversations about, like, look, this is something that you're already doing. This is now just a kind of a formal way of thinking about it, or a more purposeful way of thinking about how the technology is integrated.
Mm-hmm.
So we try not to like pile things on and say like, hey, here's a new tech tool and here's this and here's that. We wanted to make sure that while we are learning, it is still something that they're already doing, and that we were trying to celebrate those moments, celebrate those things that are already happening across the district. So they not only felt like, okay, I'm doing things right, and our team is doing things right, and our building is doing things right, but they were able to see those little moments where their activity, their kids, their students were up there, showcased as in a great example of an activity where the technology is supporting students and things like that.
That's awesome. And will you explain that I am like privy to that Padlet, having
Yes.
the knowledge before, but for those folks who maybe don't understand, I love this so much. We just give like super quick, like, what is it? How did you get it out to teachers? And like, what is maybe hanging in their room for people to always see it?
Oh, yes. Okay. So we have, we have another coach in our district. She's an instructional reading coach. She works with our K-6 students, and she's a part of a consortium of reading specialist coaches and things like that. And she found this idea that was shared out in one of their forums for something called a cookie challenge. So she brought it to me, and we worked together to basically bring it to Monroe. So the idea behind it is that we built a website that had instructional strategy ideas. One of the initiatives we've had for several years at Monroe is Keough. Keoughs are, if you've never heard of Keough, they're basically instructional strategies and structures that essentially bring accountability to students, collaboration, and things like that. So we put in some Keough strategies. We put in some edu protocols, which I'm a big fan of. They're kind of like, lesson frames and things for students to again, collaborate and create and all of those things. And we put in some other ideas. We built this website out with a bunch of different activities, a bunch of different lesson templates. And we put a challenge out to the staff and said, hey, for the next month, try one of these. Take a look, look through the website, find something that you can use in your classroom, try it out, see how it goes. We then asked them to, maybe snap a picture of their kids or a video of their students in action or something. And they would then post that information to the Padlet, maybe a little blurb or something there. And we encouraged everybody to comment and to say like, maybe tag somebody else who said like, oh, somebody just did this, why don't you give it a try? That kind of thing. So we tried to make sure that we had that collaboration where everyone can see what's going on. Mm-hmm. And we had really great feedback because it's really difficult to get out of your classroom. You know what I mean? Whether we're COVID or not, it's hard to be able to see what others are doing, let alone in your own, down the hallway versus across the entire building or across the entire district. So having those posts and things up there was kind of nice for everyone to see. And we did have incentives. That was a big part of it too. We wanted to make sure, that the teachers were rewarded for going and taking that risk and showcasing what's happening. We had some great building prizes and things like that. And we reached out to local businesses and things to provide baskets and little goodies for our teachers. But we had such great feedback from it that Beth Lee, our other instructional coach, and I decided we wanted to keep it going. So I designed a little graphic that is now posted in each room of our classroom across the entire district. It's even in our administrators' offices. It just has a little like shouted out thing. It's got a QR code that goes directly to that Padlet. And so the teachers, as they're working, And as they're, doing different things with their kids, they can snap a picture, go to the wall, scan the QR code really quickly, and post about it. And then we have seen a good uptake. We did a little challenge for Digital Learning Day, and we've seen, we had like an additional 30 posts in like an hour after I mentioned, hey, Digital Learning Day challenge, let's do this. And our staff just blows us away again, just with how much they're willing to share. And how much they're willing to put out there for others to see and inspire and encourage. So it was really nice to see.
I love that. Thank you for giving everybody a little rundown of what that is, because I think it's a super fun way to pull everyone together. Logan, from your perspective in the principal role, how have you been managing this year, keeping this, like, we're moving one-to-one forward, we're, changing instruction, we're implementing SAMR, like, how are you keeping those things forward with your staff while they are also maybe more drained than and kind of reaching this burnout at a rate higher than maybe ever before or within
Sure, absolutely.
Years?
And right, just as educators, just what they do every day is phenomenal. I'm blessed to work with a really incredible staff here at the junior high, and I think it's just a message of, I understand that you're doing a lot, you've invested a lot of time and resources in doing what you've already had. We know there's tons of things that go into lesson prep and just data analysis and monitoring trends of student performance. Mm-hmm. It's really just messaging that what we're doing with SAMR and just the resources that we have and the coaching cycles, all of those items just really are in addition to and to supplement and just enhance what you're doing. It's not like this is a mandatory initiative that everybody's got to do. You got to completely drop everything you're doing and you're converting to this because that just leads to immediate shutdown and I would have a terrible response. But even through this cookie challenge, Andrea just did a really good job breaking down, which was awesome. I even entered it myself just with some of the things that we've done. If there's a prize, I'm definitely going to want to compete for it. Yeah. So that's just kind of who I am. But we had teachers enter into that may have probably honestly told you that they would never have done that before. Mm-hmm. But just, again, it's just been consistent. It's accessible. Andrea makes it very simple in terms of, just entering your name in the hat, so to say, and using those resources and protocols that, has just really enhanced our instruction as a building and as a district. So I think it's also just like modeling on my end too. We talked about mm-hmm. that, and just even in post conferences for observations, not saying like, hey, you're getting dinged if you don't use a resource or edutech protocol that we talked about. That's not the message at all. It's just like, hey, I love the way that you did this. Do you think maybe we could consider using this option too? Just know that you have both available here. Here's some things that could provide you with. And that's really led to productive and meaningful conversations for myself and our staff members. So mm-hmm. It's been great.
Yeah, we've really just tried. We know it's a tough year. We know the last couple of years have been tough. So we've really tried to incorporate as many morale boosters as possible. And that's kind of what the cookie challenge came from, was just the idea that, we're almost halfway through the year. Let's, try celebrating some things. Let's close out the first semester with a bang with, some rewards and prizes and things like that. And I think that was a big part of it, is just making sure that our staff knows that they're cared for and they're supported, and will be an extra hand in the classroom whenever they need. Like Logan goes in and he constantly covers for teachers. One a week, right?
Twice
a week. Yeah. Twice a week he goes in, and those teachers get an extra plan period, and he takes care of their classes. And it's just really nice to see that, every admin in our district is really trying to support those teachers in what is definitely the hardest year for teaching so far.
That is awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. Wow. Very impressive too.
I'm laughing because I'm just like, oh my gosh, can we get that everywhere?
All right. We end our episodes every time with the top 3 tips. So thinking about how other districts that are seeking to achieve a truly systematic and sustainable change here with this coach and admin relationship, what are your top 3 tips coming out of Hornet Country?
I think we kind of mentioned these things along the way, but I would definitely think that it has to start with that relationship between, not only between the coaches and the admin, but the coaches and the staff as well, showing that we're a big network. Everybody is connected. Everybody has a stake in what our students are learning, whether they're, in an admin role or not. And I think with just kind of providing that support network for everybody was kind of crucial to start with. I think after that, I would say probably the idea that it's important that everybody knows the plan. So we have this great plan. Let's say, okay, if we create something with our district technology committee and then we just shove it down everybody's throats, it doesn't really work out that way. We need to, move slowly. We want to check in with all the different people and just kind of make sure that everything's aligned and that we're rolling things out in a way that doesn't seem too overwhelming. So again, kind of scripting those moves that we want to see happen to push everybody a little bit long, maybe have some of that little encouragement that we need for some staff members to start making those changes, but kind of scripting those things and moving those, making those moves slowly, I think works out well too. And then I think, again, bright spots.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just celebrating what the changes that are happening. I know for me personally, a big goal for my own learning is working on the change agent standard right now for like ISTE standards and things like that. And I think a lot of my emphasis, a lot of my own work for myself and my coaching and, the mentor that I'm working with at Forward Edge, we're really focusing on those change agent ideas. And I think that's kind of been a good way for me to start this year and to start all these new initiatives and including those bright spots that are going to help people see the change and encourage the change.
Well, I'd say you're well on your way to mastering
absolutely.
that change agent standard.
Yeah.
Right. Well, one thing I would add too, just from the building principal role, our partnership with Forward Edge has been phenomenal in terms of supporting students when we have tech malfunctions. I mean, that's just going to happen. That's just part of this process, but it's just been seamless this year in terms of getting students back on track. If they have an issue with their device, and that's just going to happen. It's natural, but it's replaced, it's taken care of. We get the kids back up and running, and we just have it's just been a very pleasant rollout process. And I'm thankful to the team and just the partnership that our district has with Forward Edge. So that's been wonderful.
Well, thank you guys. I would like to take this moment and say they were not brought on this podcast to advertise for us, but we do appreciate it.
We do appreciate it.
Not the purpose.
It's because you guys are just fantastic partners.
True.
That's all.
Thank you.
It's true. Yeah, absolutely. And then also just I know we're talking about tips and take it away, just from that building principal role. If you're looking for ideas to incorporate that like into your staff, like encourage just through the OTES 2.0 evaluation process, professional growth plans. Every teacher is required to have one of those. So maybe suggest something through EduTech or some type of protocol, and maybe that's like their goal area for the year. And that's been really great.
Yeah, awesome. And just for our non-Ohio listeners, OTES 2.0 is the Ohio Teacher Evaluation System. It was updated this year with pretty heavy emphasis on, using data and instruction and lots of other things that I think
personalized learning.
Yeah,
so
from our perspective, you couldn't achieve it without using technology, I think. So
right, yeah. But what's really great about it is that system, and I know other states might not have it, but they have, attachments that you can upload screenshots and evidence in terms of what's being done. So it's been really great for us.
Awesome.
Well, thank you both so much. I could literally go on for hours with this conversation, I think. So thank you. A
lot of awesome things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I had a great time.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yes.
Yeah, well, thanks, guys. We will be in touch with you soon.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And a reminder that you can tune in on March 29th for a final episode in this 3-part series as we are talking to a couple of coaches on how they have capitalized on their partnership with admin to create a culture of growth. So we've had a really good first 2 parts here with our mini-series, first with Tyler, and then this one here with both Andrea and Logan from Monroe Local Schools. And now we'll have another good one here to finish out this 3-part mini-series.
Yes, I mentioned this was near and dear to my heart, this little
Yes.
3-part mini-series. I think I went on a Twitter rant the other day about it, the same vein of the topic, but I am passionate about this. So it's just so important for a coach's success to really make an impact, to have the dream bond that it looks looks like Andrea and Logan have with helping to move their staff forward.
That's a fantastic relationship they got there with the coach admin. Yeah,
I know. So I think that's probably about it for today. But before you leave us, please be sure to subscribe to Restart Recharge wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at RRCoachCast.
And don't forget to reach out and connect with us on social media. And if there's any topics that are on your mind, please let us know, and we will be happy to bring it on as an episode to discuss this season.
So press the restart button,
recharge your coaching batteries, and leave feeling equipped and inspired to coach fearlessly with the Restart Recharge podcast,
a Tech Coach collective. Okay, oh God, sorry, Justin, I just spilled my water all over him for those not watching. But editing team's gonna love that blooper. So